When we look at the night sky, it feels infinite, stars scattered across a black canvas, stretching without end. But as strange as it may sound, what frightens me more than infinity are its limits, the places where knowledge stops. Because those limits aren't just out there in the cosmos, they're inside us too. Boundaries to what we can know, what we can handle, and what truths we can survive once we've uncovered them. This is the theme I want to explore today. Stories about what happens when we push beyond those boundaries, when we rip open doors that maybe were never meant to be opened. And like always, a quick warning, there will be spoilers. The first work is the 2017 film The Discovery. And before we dive in, I should add that this movie deals with some very heavy themes: death, suicide, and despair. If you're not in the right place to hear about those things, it might be best to skip this part. So, what's The Discovery about? At its core, it's a story built on a single world-shattering revelation. Scientists prove that an afterlife exists. Hard proof, not speculation or faith. Solid scientific evidence that consciousness continues after one's death. Now, you might imagine this would be the greatest relief in human history. After all, we're the only creatures on Earth cursed with the knowledge of our own mortality. Every other animal simply lives, moment to moment, unaware that all will end one day. But we humans know. We carry that awareness like a shadow that never leaves us, and it shapes everything: our religions, our arts, and culture. So, wouldn't it make sense that confirmation of an afterlife would free us from that burden? That knowing death isn't the end would finally lift that crushing weight? But the movie shows us the opposite. Instead of comfort, The Discovery unleashes chaos. Suicide rates spike. Millions of people throw themselves into death, desperate to cross into what they now know is waiting. What was meant to be reassurance becomes catastrophe. And here's where the movie intersects with a real-world idea: the info hazard. An info hazard is a piece of information so dangerous that simply knowing it can harm you, not because it tells you to do something bad, but because the knowledge itself changes how you think and act, often in destructive ways. And once you have learned it, you can't unknow it. That's exactly what happens here. Proof of an afterlife is an info hazard. It spreads, it infects minds, and it breaks society apart. The film's scientist understands this, and so, even after his initial breakthrough, he chooses silence. He keeps further discoveries to himself, refusing to share them with the public or scientific community. This isn't a new idea. In fact, it echoes something very old. Take as example the Pythagoreans in ancient Greece, who treated some mathematical truths as secrets too dangerous to reveal. Knowledge, they believed, could be corrosive, destabilizing to society if released too freely. And the discovery pushes us toward the same conclusion. Every answer opens more questions, questions that spiral into deeper and darker territory. If you don't have the strength to face them, then they don't liberate you. They crush you. In the end, the film isn't really about the afterlife. It's about how sometimes what we learn can do more harm than ignorance. But now, let's look outward, to the universe itself. In the late 1970s, a young physicist named Alan Guth found himself haunted by a puzzle. Physicists had predicted that the early universe should have left behind strange relics, ghostly fossils of creation's first second. To understand what these were, imagine the newborn universe as a roaring furnace, hotter and denser than anything we can possibly picture. In that first instant, all the fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces were fused together in a single storm. As the universe cooled, these forces split apart, and in the process, they should have left behind debris of this chaos, exotic particles unlike anything we see today. The most famous of these were called magnetic monopoles, tiny, dense objects carrying only a single magnetic pole instead of the familiar north-south pair. According to theory, the universe should have been crawling with them. But wherever scientists looked, there was nothing. This wasn't just a missing puzzle piece. It was a glaring contradiction. Guth couldn't let it go. The missing relics gnawed at him. Night after night, he worked the equations, searching for an answer. And in the depths of that obsession, he found something extraordinary, a radical new idea that would change cosmology forever. Cosmic inflation. Guth proposed that in the tiniest fraction of a second after the Big Bang, the universe didn't just expand, it exploded outward at unimaginable speed. A period of expansion so violent and so fast that it would have taken those primordial relics and scattered them to the farthest reaches of creation, diluting them across the cosmos, so far apart from one another that they might as well not exist. On one level, this solved the puzzle, but it also revealed something staggering. The universe is not only larger than we know, it's larger than we can possibly know. And this is where Guth's idea takes us, to one of the strangest and most unsettling consequences of modern physics, the cosmic horizon. To understand it, you first need to rethink what the speed of light really means. People often imagine it as just about beams of light racing through space. But it's deeper than that. The speed of light isn't just about light at all. It's the ultimate speed limit of the universe itself. Nothing, not even raw information, can move faster than this. It is the speed of causality, the rate at which cause can lead to effect, the pace at which events can influence other events across space. And because the universe has a finite age, that limit carves out a boundary, a maximum distance across which any event could ever touch us. Beyond that, it doesn't matter if galaxies collide, stars are born, or civilizations rise and fall. Their effects will never reach us. For us, they might as well not exist at all. Right now, that radius is roughly 14 billion light-years in every direction. Imagine drawing a sphere around yourself with Earth at the center. Everything inside that sphere is your observable universe. Everything outside is sealed off forever. It could be paradise, it could be hell, and you would never know. Every observer in the cosmos, every planet, every star, every intelligent being lives inside their own bubble. Each bubble centered on them, each bubble shaped by the age of the universe and the speed of light. And just like ours, their bubble ends at this horizon. And here's the eerie part. That edge isn't a wall of matter. It's not some glowing barrier. It's a wall made of causality itself. Beyond it, there simply has been enough time for light, or gravity, or anything at all to make the journey to us. And because the universe is expanding in every direction, it will never reach us, not even in the entire life of the universe. And it's this concept that lies at the heart of the Japanese short story Eden, written in the 1990s by Yoshida Saki. The story imagines a future where humanity has colonized the solar system and begun to spread to nearby stars. A new technology, the Farcast engine, has allowed faster-than-light travel, breaking the very laws of causality in the process. For the first time, human civilization stretches across interstellar distances. But then, something strange happens. A colony 70 light-years away from Earth goes silent. Rescue ships are sent, but they never return. Even the military, deploying stealth fleets, vanishes without a trace. Finally, probes are launched around the dead zone, and they too begin to disappear. Analyzing the data, a low-status scientist named Sato makes a chilling discovery. Mapping the exact point of space where the probe's signal was lost, she determines that the boundary of this dead zone is expanding at the speed of light. Its curvature reveals it is part of a sphere centered 7 billion light-years away. The implications are terrifying. Whatever this is, it has been sweeping across the cosmos, towards Earth, for half the age of the universe. This isn't the first time writers have imagined annihilation sweeping across the cosmos at light speed. The idea has been circling science fiction for decades. Take The Killing Star, a chilling novel from the 1990s. It imagines what would happen if humanity suddenly announced its presence. The response, a preemptive strike by an alien civilization using weapons traveling close to the speed of light. Kinetic missiles, nothing more than rocks, accelerated to relativistic speeds, slamming into Earth with the force of extinction. The terrifying part is the physics. There's no warning, no defense. By the time you even detect them, it's already over. Or consider Liu Cixin's three-body problem trilogy, specifically Death's End. In that book, humanity faces something called a dimensional strike, a weapon that flattens three-dimensional space into two. Once unleashed, the attack spreads outward at light speed, unstoppable, consuming everything in its path. Both of these works highlight the same unsettling truth. You don't need monsters to make horror. The laws of physics themselves are enough. The cosmos already contains scenarios where annihilation is both sudden and unavoidable. In Eden, humanity's faster-than-light technology is both a gift and a curse. Without it, we would never have noticed the wall approaching until it consumed us. But because of it, we now know, and knowing means despair. A refugee crisis explodes as colonies close to the dead zone are abandoned. It was Dr. Sato who first recognized what was happening. While others scrambled to explain the disappearing colonies, she saw a deeper pattern. The dead zone wasn't an attack. It wasn't sabotage. It was physics itself. She pointed to an obscure but terrifying possibility, the collapse of the Gibbs field, the invisible energy field that gives matter its very existence. Physicists had speculated that this field might not be in a perfectly stable state. If it ever shifted into a lower energy configuration, the laws of nature themselves would be rewritten. Everything would be annihilated and remade in an instant. A bubble of destruction would spread outward at the speed of light, erasing all that lay before it. Sato warned that this was exactly what they were witnessing, a wall of death advancing across the stars, and it would follow humanity forever. There was no running from it, no hiding, no fortification strong enough to resist. She compared it to the old parable of the man and the snail. No matter how fast you run, the snail that carries death is always behind you. The only true escape, she argued, was to flee beyond the cosmic horizon, that invisible boundary of causality where nothing from our universe could ever reach. But her warnings fell on deaf ears. Partly because she was a low-ranking scientist without political weight, partly because the truth she spoke was unbearable. To acknowledge it would mean admitting that all of humanity's power, fleets, and colonies were meaningless. And so, EarthGov buried her findings. In their ignorance, the military's voice grew louder. Admirals and generals convinced themselves this was no natural event, but a hostile force, an alien enemy capable of tracking ships through hyperspace, of erasing fleets as soon as they arrived. They claimed this unseen enemy lacked faster than light communication. Humanity, with its farcast relays, had the advantage. All that was needed was strength. And so, the governments of Earth backed the plan. A vast militarization effort began. Entire economies were bent to war. Drafts were enforced across the colonies. Fortresses were carved into moons, bunkers so deep that only a supernova could touch them. Orbital platforms bristled with antimatter mines and battle cruisers. For the first time in centuries, humanity believed itself united, ready to meet the threat head-on. 10 years of preparation led to the day of truth. Faster than light relays stood guard across the frontier. And then the wave arrived. At first, just silence. Sensors blinked out as the annihilation front swept through them one by one. Then came the fortified worlds. Bunkers were tied to a quantum entanglement array, a system so secure that nothing could interrupt its connection. As long as the bunker existed, its signal would transmit. The generals waited, confident. But when the wall touched the planet, the entanglement link went dark. 20 minutes later, another fortress world fell silent. 40 minutes later, a moon base orbiting a gas giant vanished from the network. Panic spread through the fleet. One captain broke formation, attempting to retreat. The admiral, consumed by pride and fury, ordered him back. When he refused, the admiral destroyed his ship with his own guns. "There will be no cowardice today," he declared. "The Sky Fleet would stand its ground." But courage meant nothing. Minutes later, the entire fleet was gone, not defeated in battle, erased as if it had never existed. The shock ignited riots across Earth. The great fortifications, the war economy, the sacrifice of billions, all meaningless. For the first time, the truth of Dr. Sato's warnings became undeniable. And in the ashes of that failure, with civilization spiraling into chaos, a new figure emerged. That was when Sora stepped forward, publicly aligning himself with Dr. Sato. A wealthy magnate, he publicly announced the construction of massive arc ships, vast vessels designed to flee beyond the cosmic horizon, to a region of space where, in theory, the wall can never reach. Unlike EarthGov or the admirals, he had listened to Sato's warnings. He had seen the destruction coming and knew the military's dream of victory was nothing but delusion. And unlike the governments that drowned in their own bureaucracy, Sora had something else, limitless resources and the will to use them. He proposed a partnership. Sato would provide the science, the vision of what needed to be done. He would provide the power to make it real. The arcs had only one purpose: to flee as fast as possible, to carry humanity beyond the cosmic horizon into a region of space where, in theory, the wall of death could never reach. He promised survival, but his methods revealed the ruthless edge beneath his calm, visionary mask. EarthGov had already declared an embargo on strategic resources across the core systems. The official fleets would never surrender what was needed to build the arc ships, which meant Sora had to look elsewhere. And so his convoys turned to the fringe worlds. These were systems already abandoned by EarthGov, left to their fate as the annihilation front crept closer. Entire populations had fled inward, but not everyone. Some remained, the old, unwilling to leave the only home they had ever known. Religious cults who saw the coming wave as divine judgment and refused to escape it. Settlers too poor to find passage back to Terra. On these dying worlds, life continued in shadows, in small towns and silent temples, while the ticking clock of extinction grew louder every day. Sora's agents came, not as liberators, but as harvesters. They stripped the abandoned colonies bare. Sometimes the locals were given passage aboard freighters, but more often they were left behind. To Sora, they were already dead. To Sato, the arc ships were humanity's last hope, a sacred mission to preserve life. To Sora, they were an investment, a gamble to place himself above the extinction of the species. Every life lost in the process was weighed against the only thing that mattered, finishing the ships before the wall arrived. When the arc ships were finally completed, 3 titanic vessels, each the size of a floating city, they stood as monuments to sacrifice and ruin. But EarthGov had no intention of letting Sora control them. The moment the final drives were installed, the fleets arrived. Politicians and admirals had waited patiently for a decade, letting Sora and Sato carry the burden of construction. Now, with the ships finished, they descended like vultures. Their plan was simple: seize the arcs, staff them with the ruling elite, and use them as permanent mobile parliaments, lifeboats for the privileged few. But Sora had anticipated the betrayal. His private security fleets were armed, waiting. The battle that followed lit the void with fire. Earth's cruisers clashed with Sora's escorts, turning night into brief, false dawns. One arc was crippled, torn apart in orbit, but the remaining 2, damaged but intact, broke free. With Sato aboard one and Sora aboard the other, the arcs jumped into hyperspace, and so began their odyssey. For 6 years, the ships ventured further than what humanity thought possible. Entire galaxies came and went as the ships moved through hyperspace at insane speeds. Every now and then, the engines would have to be shut down before beginning another jump, always in the same direction. Each time the ark stopped, a new sky was revealed to the crews, full of strange new stars, never before seen by human eyes. Finally, the day came when they crossed the cosmic horizon. It was completely uneventful. This barrier was never a thing, not a wall to be breached. Its limits were set by causality, not by matter. And so, as the arcs slipped past it, the universe simply continued to extend in every direction. But something had changed. In a profound and certain way, they had entered a new cosmos, one forever separated from the universe humanity had known until now. At last, the search for a new world could begin. Probes were launched into nearby systems, scanning for a planet that could serve as a second Earth. Hope began to stir in the weary hearts of the refugees. And then, one probe went dark, then another, then another. Each disappearance echoed the same dreadful pattern humanity had already seen before. The analysis revealed the truth. Another annihilation zone existed here, but this one was worse, vast beyond comprehension. Its curvature revealed a sphere more than 100 billion light-years across, a scale impossible to reconcile with the age of the universe itself. The implication was clear and devastating. The horror was not confined to their old cosmos. It was deeper, woven into the bones of reality. Wherever they fled, no matter how far, it would follow. The terrible revelation spread across the Ark ships like a sickness. Refugees wept openly, their brief hope extinguished. It was the captain of one of the Arks who finally put the horror into words. He realized what the analysis truly meant. There is probably no place in the cosmos truly safe for humanity. The unseen horror they had discovered was, by its very nature, unknowable. There would be no negotiation, no understanding, no hope of coexistence. The only interaction possible was annihilation. And in that sense, the only knowledge humanity could ever gain from it was knowledge of doom. This is why it works so well as cosmic horror. Not because of monsters or battles, or even death itself, but because of the silence, the inevitability, the realization that the universe itself may carry within it something we can never comprehend, except in the moment it erases us. If humanity had never discovered faster than light travel, none of this would have been known. The wall of death would have swept across Earth and its colonies silently, without warning, without terror. Ignorance in this case would have been a mercy. But with FTL, with our defiance of the limits of causality, we condemned ourselves to knowledge of something we could never outrun. And here the metaphor becomes clear. This fear, this dread, is nothing more than a mirror of our own mortality. As one character says in the story, man is the only animal that knows it will die someday, and that knowledge has filled him with dread since the beginning. Now, by violating yet another boundary, humanity has extended that dread to the cosmos itself, eternally on the run from a dying universe, condemned to abandon not just homes and planets, but the very idea of a future. The Eden of the tale is not a place, not a paradise planet waiting beyond the stars. It is the state of innocent ignorance, the safety we once had when we didn't know what was coming. Just like in the biblical story, humanity has eaten the fruit again, and in exchange for wisdom, we are cast out, forced to wander a hostile world, cursed by the very truth we sought. Just like in the discovery, knowledge does not set us free. It only deepens our despair. The garden is gone, the innocence is lost, and what remains is the terrible burden of knowing. But to truly understand Eden, we also need to look at the life of its author. When she was a teenager, Japan's great economic bubble collapsed. The promise of endless growth, the illusion of stability, all shattered almost overnight. Families were ruined. Futures that seemed guaranteed suddenly evaporated. For Saki, this collapse coincided with something even more personal, her father's disappearance. He left without a word, abandoning her and her mother. In Japan, this practice has a name, johatsu, literally evaporation. It refers to people who choose to vanish from their lives, leaving behind jobs, debts, and families, erasing themselves as if they never existed. No goodbye, no closure. Saki later admitted that this experience was the seed of Eden. The annihilation wave in her story, the silent erasure of entire worlds, the sudden vanishing of everything familiar, was born from the day her father simply ceased to be part of her life. The cosmos of her novella reflects not just abstract physics, but the intimate horror of loss without explanation. Both of these stories are meditations on loss and grief, on the terror not of the unknown, but of what happens when we reach beyond its boundaries. And that brings us to the end of this exploration of the discovery and Eden, two stories that confront us not with the comfort of answers, but with the terror of what lies beyond our limits. And you know what comes next. If you liked it, give it a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. You help the channel a lot this way. And see you in the next video, my people.